Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Hope you're doing well. It is opening day week in Major League Baseball. Not technically true because the games were already played between the Cubs and the Dodgers, but you know what I'm saying. It really is the opening week of the 2025 fantasy baseball season and the baseball season, of course, as well. We'll go over some of the general outline today of what you should be expecting in 2025. I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Thanks for joining me here today. Let me get the microphone in the right spot. That's a little bit too big for everyone. For those of you wondering what I'm doing, because you listen on the podcast by either going to FantasyGuru.com and going to the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page, or simply typing in Fantasy Sports Daily to your podcast network. We do have a show live every single day at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Myself, Justin Fensterman, the crew, Russell Clay, Tyler Beaker, Armando Marceleron. I host the show Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Justin Fensterman hosts on Wednesdays, while I'm over on SiriusXM with Jeff Mans. We'll get into that more in a second. Again, I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Follow me on social medias at the Ray Flowers. If you're wondering again why I'm talking about adjusting my phone and you can see it, there's 3 places you can watch the show live. And if you're watching live, you can leave comments and questions that we'll address throughout the show. You can also obviously watch it there in these 3 spots at any point in time. If you don't want to just listen, if you want to see things, you can do that as well. Elite Sports on YouTube. So it's youtube.com/@EliteSportsNetwork. Facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ, or Twitter X @FantasyGuruSite. Any of those 3 places, you can watch the show as well as hearing it. So take advantage of that. All right. So for those of you that are watching at whatever point you're watching, here's what we're talking about today. Let me throw it up on the screen. What's the plan for DFS for FantasyGuru.com this year? What's the plan for betting this year at FantasyGuru.com? SiriusXM plans? There's a new plan. We'll talk about it in a second. We'll also talk about all the injuries. I mean, baseball, all these teams are announcing these moves, right? And we'll talk about a ton of guys are getting hurt every 20 minutes. And the more this happens, the more I realize 2 things smack dab in your face. 1, pitchers can't stay healthy. And 2, because every pitcher throws 97 miles an hour, because of the way that, batters are trying to approach their at-bats, guys are constantly getting hit in the hands. Because we talk about this all the time. They don't take pitches the right way. They're diving out over the plate, trying to cover the outside half. They're constantly leaving their hands exposed. Guys are getting hurt. Multiple guys we'll talk about today. But regardless, we'll go through that here on the show today. Remember, you can always go to FantasyGuru.com, click the subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. You click that subscribe tab, and it opens up the plethora of products that we have available. You can get the football product, baseball product, basketball, hockey, NASCAR, PGA, MMA, soccer, horse racing, on and on and on over at FantasyGuru.com. So click that subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. Have at it there. There's 3 main baseball packages. You can get all 3 of them as one package. You can get only 1 of the 3. You can get 2 of the 3. If you want to get 2 of the 3, send a note to support@FantasyGuru.com. Support@FantasyGuru.com. All right, let's talk a little bit about it today. Let's get involved. DFS plan. What is it over at FantasyGuru.com? Well, we're changing things up a little bit. So we're basically going to go through these 3 buckets right now of plans for the season. Then we'll dive into the news and notes of the day. The first one is the DFS plan. I'm announcing something I probably shouldn't be announcing, but what the hell, let's announce it anyway. I'm pretty sure, like 95%, this is how it's going to go. So don't hold me 100% to it, but I think this is going to be the plan. In the past, we have done multiple DFS articles. So there's been a cash game breakdown. There's been a GPP breakdown. The plan nowadays is to basically go in 2025 with one article that kind of covers both. So there will be a daily article talking about the DFS slate. There will then be the cheat sheets, which you're used to. And then there'll be my article. And my article is going to be kind of similar, but kind of different to what it's been in the past. Instead of doing the cash game breakdown on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, I'm kind of doing the same thing, but in a little bit of a condensed form. We know that, not that people don't like to read, but everyone's busy and got things going on. And the truth of the matter is, when you're talking DFS, it's great to have these 6 points of data that I love to put out there and say, hey, everyone, this is why I like this guy, the other guy. At the same time, I hope that you have grown to learn that, what I do professionally is very important to me, that I strive diligently to be the best I can, and that I don't do anything willy-nilly, right? So it'll be a little bit condensed. So hopefully there'll be a little less reading, still the same information. You'll still have the players at each position, all that. We're working on a couple of things to maybe automate a piece or two. But the bottom line is a little bit tighter. So instead of 2 articles every day, Cash Game and GPP will have 1 article done by the staff. We'll then have my article, which is a little bit of a condensed version of what I've done in the past. So we'll have the cheat sheet. We'll still have people in Discord answering questions and all of that. So hopefully the product will be a little streamlined for you this year, and it'll work out better for you, actually. In terms of the betting plan, this is another area that I think the plan is for me to spend a little bit less time doing DFS, and that extra 45 minutes that I don't, or extra hour that I don't have to spend on DFS, I can now spend on the wagering side of things. We talked a lot about the wagering last year, how it was kind of a new deal to me. I've never bet. I'm not a bettor. Talked about this a lot. My grandfather had some betting issues, so I've just never done it. I'm in California. You can't do things anyway. So there was a learning curve. And something that I'm really proud of is throughout the season last year, on a month-to-month basis, the success rate went up. So I learned a lot of things last year, really ready to dive into the wagering side of things in 2025. So the plan is basically, I'm not the only person putting bets out, right? Chris Rose, Scott Bonder, Jeff Mans, Ted Schuster, like a bunch of people could be putting out bets on a daily basis. I will generally put bets out when I'm writing articles. When I'm not writing articles, they'll be a little bit lighter. Maybe I won't have any. Maybe it'll be lighter because I don't want to, when I'm spending 5 hours going through a DFS slate, I'm really in tune with the slate versus, spending an hour or two. I got to be a little more selective. So obviously be very upfront about all that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a podcast here probably tomorrow for posting on Wednesday, which will be an intro to betting. So for those of you wondering, what is the betting plan? What is the betting style at fantasyguru.com? What are we trying to accomplish? There's likely to be a podcast on that up on Wednesday over at fantasyguru.com, where I spend 30, 45 minutes talking specifically about the betting plan for 2025. So remember, we've got the DFS available at fantasyguru.com. We've got the wagering available at fantasyguru.com. We obviously have the seasonal piece available at fantasyguru.com. Click the subscribe tab in the top right corner, get signed up, get all 3 packages, get 2 of the 3 packages, get 1 of the packages. You can always send a note to support@fantasyguru.com. The third piece of information here, I probably shouldn't be announcing this either, but what the hell, let's go. Gametime returns. So myself and Justin Fensterman will be on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, barring a catastrophe this week. So again, that's the plan. Hopefully things don't blow up into my face for announcing this here on the show. But I think the plan is for us to be live and active 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific time, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. And that would start next week on March 31st. So that's the plan. We'll have more information as we get closer. We're talking to everybody at Sirius midweek to kind of finalize things. We'll remind you later in the week if that is indeed the case. So the bottom line is it looks like, just like last season, that Justin and I will be on Gametime from 8 to 10 Eastern, Monday through Friday on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Jeff Mans is on the Elite Sports Show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, 3 o'clock Monday through Friday. I'll be with you here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I'll be with Jeff at 3 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday, and I'll have my own show every night for 2 hours with Justin. So there'll be a lot of talking by Ray Flowers. Most days at least 3 hours, some days more. So hopefully if you like what we're doing here, get a subscription to fantasyguru.com, get a subscription to SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, and hear more of it. So some exciting things to share, and I wanted to do that here at the top of the week since it is basically the opening of the 2025 fantasy baseball season. Okay, let's talk some news and notes about players. And, this is a tough time, and I've dealt with this myself. I'm sure a lot of you have too, just to put it out there. The early games screw everything up. Do these 2 games count? Do they not count? Are you doing an extra long week? If the week started, last week for you, can you still make changes this week? It's Major League Baseball does us no favors with this. I wish they didn't. We talk about it, but it's the plan, so they did it. Another thing that's really screwing people up, because I'm personally dealing with this myself, is that teams have announced players are going on the injured list. However, the players haven't officially been placed on the injured list in a large amount of these scenarios. Some providers, whether you're using Fantrax or Yahoo or ESPN or RT Sports or whatever it might be, some of the providers are very proactive in setting up scenarios where players that are out, Ronald Acuna, we know he's not starting the season healthy. He should be able to be put on the injured list right now, even if it's not officially happened for the Braves. I'm dealing with a scenario personally where I have backup middle infielders. I have backup corner outfielders. I have backup outfielders on my team. I don't have a backup catcher in a 15-team mixed league with 2 catcher spot. I'm not taking a third catcher. I lost Tyler Stevenson. I'm having a hard time getting the system to recognize that Tyler Stevenson, who the Reds announced would start the season on the injured list a week ago, isn't officially on the injured list as of now. I'm having a hard time to get the provider to figure this out because I don't want to take a 0 because the league doesn't allow me to pick up a catcher to fill in. I'm obviously not going to drop Tyler Stevenson if he's going to miss 14 days, especially in a 14, 15-team mixer with 2 catchers. There's no way in hell I'm dropping him. Am I just taking a 0 for the first week of the season? And this is something that comes up. But to me, it's different if in the regular season a guy gets hurt on Sunday, Monday morning starts, and we don't know if he's going to be placed on the injured list. That to me is different. That's unfortunate, and we all deal with that. But that is different than right now when a team has announced so-and-so is going to start the season on the injured list and the player's not officially on the injured list. What do? You're not dropping Zacl Gelof, right? You're not dropping Tyler Stevenson. You're not dropping Alexis Diaz. So I don't know. Hopefully you're not all dealing with that. I'm dealing with that. I assume you are too. Let's start with the trade. This one is disappointing. It's not depressing. I'm not going to take it that far, but it's disappointing. This is my old mug. It's no longer says it, but it's from the Monterey Bay Aquarium. It's a really nice mug. I like it. I used to say Monterey Bay Aquarium. It ran off. It's probably 12 years old by now. Okay. Nolan Jones was traded to the Guardians in exchange for Tyler Freeman. Jones has not had a great spring, but there was obviously hope he would recapture at least some of his rookie performance where he's basically 2020, played about 100 games. Hopes of 30-30 last year and greatness didn't happen. It was a terrible season. Hopes of him, and I said this previously on the show because I've drafted him in multiple leagues. We talked about him on the show, all this kind of stuff. I was hoping he'd hit 20, 25 home runs and steal 10, 12 bases, which I think is totally doable. Now he loses Colorado and goes to Cleveland, which is a massive downgrade in terms of ballpark. I guess you can make the argument that he gets a slight upgrade in terms of the roster, which is nice, but I'd rather have the ballpark, right? I don't think that's not a trade-off I would want to make. We have updated the rankings over at fantasyguru.com as a result of this trade of Jones. Jones should play most days against righties, but the problem is the Guardians are very much a platoon situation team. Their outfield is Stephen Kwan, who's playing every day. In center field, they've got Lane Thomas, who's likely to play. Lane Thomas could be benched against some righties, but Nolan Jones is not a center fielder, so you got those 2 guys out there, and then Will Brennan. Will Brennan's kind of just taking up space. I think Nolan Jones ultimately surpasses Brennan, but does Jones play against any lefties? Does he play every day against righties? When he's in the lineup, is he hitting in the bottom third? Not a good move for Nolan Jones. Again, we've dropped him in the rankings as a result. Tyler Freeman might play some second base here with a Estrada beat up at the start of the season. He's kind of just a guy. I wouldn't get excited about him just because he went to Colorado. NL league, sure. Mixed leagues, Bottom line is it's disappointing for Nolan Jones. And I have him on multiple teams, so you're not the only one disappointed in this move if it happened to you too. Mike Elias, the general manager of the Orioles, said the following, that Gunnar Henderson, who was supposed to be okay, and is, I guess, still considered to be okay, he's going to begin the season on the 10-day injured list. Now, I think at this point, it's fair to suggest that he's going to miss the 10 days and then he's going to be back in action. That's my expectation at this point. We've talked a lot about Gunnar Henderson, where he's at coming back from the intercostal issue. Little disappointing, mild strain, weeks and weeks and weeks, and now he's going to miss the start of the season. So, I don't think it's that big of a deal. We talked about that. I suggested dropping him 3 or 4 spots on your big board. If you did that, you're probably feeling good about it now. If, Henderson plays 147 games this year and is Gunnar Henderson, no one's really going to care that much. But this is disappointing for those people who took him 7th or 8th. It's always disappointing to have a guy start the year injured. The good news is he hasn't apparently had any setbacks. There just hasn't been enough time to get him back and active. So Gunnar Henderson should be good to go once he has that short stint on the injury list. At least that's the expectation / hope at this point. Oh, by the way, I just remembered, speaking of all the talking I'm going to be doing, I did a lot of talking over the weekend too. You probably have seen it for those of you that are members over at fantasyguru.com. Again, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner to get signed up for seasonal, DFS, or wagering, any of the 3. Support at fantasyguru.com for an email. Excuse me. Got a frog in my throat this morning. I did multiple podcasts this weekend. The traditional Ray Flowers comments on the top 50 hitters and top 50 pitchers. So for those of you looking for a little bit more of that, it is available over at fantasyguru.com. Basically, no notes, a no hold bars discussion between me and you. If you're a member over at fantasyguru.com, about each of the top 50 players on offense and about each of the top 50 pitchers on the hill. So those two podcasts, each from about 40 minutes long, 35 minutes long, over at fantasyguru.com. Here's one of the guys, Victor Robles, who we were talking about. Hurt his hand. They ran x-rays on the hand. There's optimism that he will be fine. There's some additional testing that's going under that Robles is undertaking just to be sure. Guys, for those of you that are watching, we've done this before. Let's do it again. Traditionally, you hold your hands out, right? I'm trying to do this so you can actually watch. I learned this literally when I was 14 years old. Because one time when I was 14, I had my bat in my hand. A pitch came inside. I leaned back. Thank God the pitch hit the knob of the bat. I had a huge dent in the knob of my bat, and I had it for the next 3 years when I owned the bat. So I leaned back like this, and my coach said, "We can't be having this." Actually, I was 13 years old. It was a 31-27 Green Easton, 31 inches, 27 ounces. I think that's what it was. It might have been a 31-28. Yeah, 31-28 because the 32 was 29. It was a 31-28 Green Easton. I leaned back and took it. The coach taught me, you turn your shoulder in. When an inside pitch comes, you turn your shoulder in to protect your hands. So the ball hits you here. What happens is guys dive out over the plate to cover the outside, and then they end up trying to lean back, and you can't do that on a 95-mile-an-hour pitch. Or the ball comes in, and they start to go, and their move is to do this. So they leave their hands exposed instead of turning their shoulder in and taking the pitch. Victor Robles is supposed to be okay. Remember, Zacl Gelof was supposed to be okay. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. Phil Backert and I have SiriusXM and Fantasy Sports Radio, and as well as our football guy, our IDP guy at FG. We've had the running debate. The question is, how many guys are going to, break their hand on an inside pitch? And we set it at 8.5. And I mean, we're already off to the races. Like, this is a continual issue that we talk about a lot. I understand why it occurs. I also wish guys would follow the basics. If I had Victor Robles' talent, right? I didn't. So I had to learn the basics. A lot of these guys don't have it. The good news is Robles should be okay, but we'll continue to monitor that situation. Another guy that should be okay is Vinnie Pasquantino. He left the game over the weekend against the Rangers with a right hamstring strain. We haven't heard officially he's going to the injured list. I think it's fair to expect him to be on the injured list to start the season. We don't know. What we have heard is nothing overtly negative. It's not like he blew this out. It's not like this is a grade 3 strain. It's not like he's been announced to miss months. Pasquantino's not a runner anyway, so obviously, we can get him back out on the field, and as long as his hamstring's okay, just hit kid. But he tried to beat out a double play over the weekend and had the hamstring injury. So we'll see. I think it again is probably a 50-50, if not a 40-60. Did he start the season on the injured list? We'll see. Maybe I've got this situation totally wrong. Maybe there'll be an announcement that he's going to miss 4 weeks. We'll follow that news today. Remember, we're recording this at 9:20 West Coast time on a Monday. Jack Caglione, in theory, who's had a really strong spring, who's this elite power hitting first base option, could end up making the team early because of that. We'll see. Even if he does make the team, he better go 7 for 18 with 2 home runs if he wants to stay. If Vinnie Pasquantino is only going to miss a couple of weeks, right? So that's a situation to monitor. At this point in time, again, we're kind of up in the air with what to go with Vinnie P. But if you have Vinnie P on your team, start making plans to have another first base option here early in the season. Brooks Lee, I don't know how many people care about Brooks Lee. Yes, he's on the Twins. Yes, he's a high-end prospect, or he was a high-end prospect. He's kind of lost some of that luster here the last 2 years. He's going to start the season on the injured list with his back issue. The expectation was that he would be the third baseman because obviously Royce Lewis is out with his hamstring injury. So Brooks Lee was going to take over at third base. Well, now Brooks Lee is going to start the season on the injured list. So Jose Miranda, Austin Martin is there. Edward Julian's an option. I'm kind of thinking Jose Miranda sees some time at third base. We'll see. But there is an opening in the Twins lineup, a significant opening, because, again, the 2 guys that were slated to man the hot corner are just not in play. Miranda is somebody that, for those that forgot, he had that massive season in the minors. Let me pull it up here. What was his season in the minors? Let's see. Jose Miranda. Where are you, Mr. Miranda? There you are. I want to say he hit 360 with like 25 home runs. What was it? He hit 344 with 30 home runs back in 2021. Since he's been promoted to the big leagues, he's been fine, but a little more was expected of him than fine. He's dealt with some injuries too, so comes into the season, 400 plate appearances is kind of where we're hoping he gets. Maybe the number ends up being over 500 if he gets the opportunity to play every day at the start of the season because of injuries. Maybe he's at the DH spot. Maybe Willie Castro plays third base and they put Julian at second. Like, there's ways the Twins can move this around. But the bottom line is I think there's a legitimate chance that we see Miranda get some significant work here to start the season. And even Edward Julian, who's got a really good approach, has some power, kind of in the Brandon Lau mold, a little less power, a better approach, so more of an on-base percentage guy. But we'll see how it plays out with the Twins. Continue to monitor that situation. But 2 guys out for the Twins. There are openings in that starting lineup. Shane McClanahan. I was on the computer on Saturday when this injury happened, and he threw a pitch. For those of you that didn't see it, he threw his pitch, kind of fell forward a little bit as he threw it. His shoulder went down. His arm was hanging at his side. He was shaking it. He immediately called for the trainer to come out, and we all thought it's over. It's not over. The report is that he's got nerve inflammation in his left triceps. The estimate for his return now is unknown. We are being told there's nothing structurally wrong. We're being told that his elbow is fine. Obviously, your triceps is in your upper arm. It's not in your elbow. So in theory, this is good news because it's not the elbow that he's had repaired. In reality, he could be looking at an extended absence. He could be looking at missing a month or 2. We just don't know. I think right now the hope is that he's back in April. Because remember, up until this point, all the news with McClanahan had been really positive. He was trending forward. He was feeling good. The velocity was there. The location was there. Opening day starter, all this kind of stuff. Ryan Pipiot's not going to be the opening day starter for the Rays. But right now we're in a complete holding mode with Shane McClanahan. And this is yet another reminder smacking people's faces, which is what I talk about all the time on this show, on podcasts, on the radio, in articles over at FG. There's too much of an assumption when a player gets hurt that they're going to return and be fine. There's just way too much of that. There's way too much, like the Jacob deGrom thing. Like, okay, if he's healthy, how many times have you heard that? How many times have you heard, well, if Shane McClanahan's back, he could miss April, right? So I always caution people to be careful of drafting guys that are injury prone, if that is a thing. I always caution people to draft guys that are coming back from injury. I always caution people not to just look at a player coming back from injury and think they're going to be the pre-injury guy immediately. We'll see with McClanahan. I have had questions, like someone asked me a question, I'm in a dynasty league. We're not dropping Shane McClanahan in the dynasty league. Way too early to be doing that. We're not dropping him in a redraft league. It's way too early to be doing that. At the same time, you shouldn't have been drafting Shane McClanahan and expecting him to throw 170 innings, right? 130, 140 should have been your expectation with him. At this point in time, I don't know if he can make it there. And again, the nerve issue should heal. It should be okay, right? But, that could linger. He could miss months. We don't know. It could be weeks. So we're not dropping Shane McClanahan. I haven't drafted him in a single league. The cost has been too high for me. But if you've got him, you got to hold on at this point. Ranger Suarez, we talked about him later last week. The hurler for the Phillies. He's going to start the season on the injured list with his back issue. Back issue last year was a problem. The Phillies don't seem overly concerned with the back issue of Ranger Suarez right now. Same time, he's going to start the season on the injured list. We don't have an understanding right now of when he's going to be back. Taijuan Walker probably steps into the rotation. Taijuan Walker's been terrible for the last 2 years. That's not a position we're turning to for anyone. So Suarez, Suarez was the guy that you drafted to round out your rotation. Terrific to start last season. Backslid as the year went on as expected. A solid innings eater when healthy. Not a strikeout guy, not a sexy play. In most leagues, if you have an IL spot, you put Ranger Suarez on the IL, you go grab someone else. If you don't have an IL spot, it really depends upon who you're grabbing, whether you hold on to Ranger Suarez. I was answering a lot of questions in Discord this morning over at FG. And remember, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner to get signed up. And that part of your package, whatever package you get, betting, DFS, or seasonal, is access to the Discord room to ask questions for that particular package. I continue to have people ask me questions or, hey, this is my team. What do you think? This kind of stuff. And all I'm seeing is 10-team head-to-head leagues. Like apparently that's the thing everyone does. And if you're in a 10-team head-to-head league and Ranger Suarez, if you're in a 15-team league, we're not dropping Ranger Suarez. If you've got unlimited IL spots, you're not dropping Ranger Suarez. If you have 2 or 3 IL spots, if you have no IL spots, Suarez is a tough one because it doesn't sound like it's anything significant, but just taking zeros to start the season is always kind of tough. Zacl Gelof, another one of these guys who hurt his hand when hit by a pitch. He unfortunately broke the hamate bone. This is the same injury that Francisco Alvarez has dealt with. This is the same injury players deal with every season. Hamate bone is a bone in here in your wrist. Basically, it's a bone that evolutionarily, say it right, we don't need. It's a useless bone. And the expectation is at some point it'll vanish, right? It's one of those evolutionary things that we've grown out. So bottom line is the bone gets broken, surgeon goes in there, removes the bone, it's never a problem again. You take the bone out, you wouldn't know it if your bone was removed. Like once Gelof is healed from the surgery, should be fine. Everything should be fine, should have no limitations in movement, should have no limitations in strength. But the bottom line is you got to go in there and remove it. And it takes anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks to come back from that. Generally, it's 6 to 8 weeks. And that's the estimation A's are giving for Gelof right now. 6 to 8 weeks. So the guy that we were looking at to go 2020 this year, to be a solid middle infield option, he's plummeted down the rankings at fantasyguru.com. We already were starting to pull him back a little bit here the last 10 days. But this news crushes his value. If you drafted Gelof, you got to make other plans. I have him in my keeper league. Luckily, he's a reserve play for me there, but I know a lot of you drafted him as a starter. We need to start going and looking at other options at second base because, again, he's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks. He's out all of April, and he's probably going to miss at least half of May, maybe all of May. So this is really bad. Luis Urias is the guy that likely steps up for the Athletics. He is not a pivot. If you have Gelof, you don't go and grab Urias thinking you're going to get the same level of production. Urias has a good approach. And his batting average will likely be okay with a decent on-base percentage, but he doesn't have the power of Gelof. He's not going to steal bases like Gelof. He's more of a plug-and-play guy in an AL-only league that you could feel good about because now he's going to get all this playing time. In a mixed league, Luis Urias, a guy I used to like, by the way, if you've been with me for a long time, you'll remember this. A guy I used to like, he's just not developed at the major league level, so he's just not a mixed league option. Paul Goldschmidt, we talked about Austin Wells on this show. There's a player profile on Austin Wells over at fantasyguru.com. There's a Tanner Houck player profile that went up this morning over at fantasyguru.com. We're doing all this talk about the plans for Fantasy Guru in 2025 in baseball. We've updated our DFS intro articles over at fantasyguru.com. So Chris Rose's article is up. Jeff Mann's is up. Scott Bonner just wrote an article on the weekend. That's been posted. So for those of you getting ready to get those DFS juices flowing, all the intro articles are there for you to view at the site as well. But part of the thing we talked about with Austin Wells is that he's going to bat leadoff against right-handed pitching. Who's going to bat leadoff against lefties? Not going to be Austin Wells. Paul Goldschmidt. It's not locked in. But Aaron Boone is considering Paul Goldschmidt batting leadoff against lefties. And as someone who has Paul Goldschmidt in a couple of leagues, I know a lot of you probably grab Paul Goldschmidt as your corner infield option. This is spectacular news if true. Now, it's against lefties, not righties. Goldschmidt probably hits 5th against righties. Maybe clean up some days, but 5th against righties. He's hitting the leadoff against lefties ahead of Aaron Judge. Yeah, buddy. So this is good news for Goldschmidt. He's not turning the clock back. He's not hitting 300 with 35 home runs. But this is good and positive news for Paul Goldschmidt. And you see that, and you get, all right, feel a little bit better about Paul Goldschmidt here as that corner infield option in the mixed league. Brandon Drury was having a great spring. Great spring, crushing the baseball, hitting the ball over the fence, all that kind of stuff. He's been diagnosed with a fractured thumb as a result of an injury. He was then released by the White Sox. I admit that I didn't this morning go in and dive into great detail to see what the release was about. But the bottom line is he's now out there, so he could be missing 6 to 8 weeks, right? It's a broken thumb. Broken thumb, obviously you can't play through that. Though I tried to. I've told the story many times. I got stepped on and broke my thumb, kept playing in the game. I did hit a ball that would have been a home run. I'm positive because it was my top hand. And so I couldn't, I had to just hit like this, my thumb off the bat, hit a ball off the fence in right center field. It would have been a home run if I had my thumb. But anyway, broken thumb for Brandon Drury, left thumb too, by the way. So he's now a free agent. If I'm not, I say that, let me verify. Sometimes I do this, like I have a fever dream. I'm pretty sure this is the case. And then I say it, and I'm like, well, yeah, he was released. So free agent, he'll sign with somebody at some point, I would assume. An only option, but he was having a really good spring. And remember, 2 of the last 3 years, he had 20-plus home runs. I think it was 25 home runs 2 of the last 3 years. So, Brandon Drury, not a bad in-season addition for some team, but right now, no fantasy value. Another guy with no fantasy value this season, and his future is very clouded now, is Drew Thorpe. He's going to have Tommy John surgery, the changeup artist of the White Sox, a guy that they were hoping to be part of the rotation for years. Might still end up being that guy, but he's having Tommy John surgery. Obviously, this season is ruined for him. Maybe midseason next year now. So Drew Thorpe, if you had any hopes of him emerging this season, not going to happen. Hagen Smith and Noah Schultz are the 2 premium young pitching prospects of the White Sox. Smith and Schultz, we probably see both guys this season. I would expect Schultz to be seen much earlier. Smith is probably very late in the year. Schultz maybe earlier in the year because he's the guy. He's 6'9", he throws 97 miles an hour, all that kind of stuff. The injury to Thorpe, I don't know if it accelerates the move for either one of these guys. It probably doesn't. But Thorpe is not in the mix. So it does. When you start talking about turning to these guys that the White Sox will be turning to in their rotation instead of guys like Schultz and Smith at some point, when we're not worried about arbitration and playing time, at some point you look at your team and you're like, we suck anyway. We got to do something there. I mean, the starting rotation right now, Martin Perez, Shane Smith, Davis Martin, Jonathan Cannon, Sean Burke. We're seeing Noah Schultz at some point. Hopefully we'll see Hagen Smith at some point too, but bad news for Drew Thorpe. The Giants optioned out Kyle Harrison. This has been an ongoing story that we followed here live on the show. Well, live when we're doing the show. Harrison, who showed up last year, was disappointing, who showed up in camp this season, supposedly feeling better, supposedly with the return of the velocity. Just struggled, hasn't been great. Kyle Harrison hasn't been the guy he was drafted to be or the guy he was showing himself to be in the minor leagues since promoted to the Giants last year. Just hasn't been that guy. And this spring, just guys outperformed him. And so Layden Raup and Hayden Birdsong are now in the driver's seat for the 5th spot in the Giants rotation. Harrison has plummeted down the rankings at fantasyguru.com. Even if you're in a dynasty league, this is not good. He was supposed to be a 94 5-mile-an-hour left-hander who was going to dominate and strike out 10.5 guys per 9 innings. Right now, he's looked like a 5th starter. And he doesn't even have the opportunity to be the 5th starter for the Giants because, frankly, Raup and Birdsong have been better. We talked about this. I actually drafted him, I think it was Tout Wars, with the 29th round pick. I took Birdsong just in case it plays out this way. My hope is that Birdsong does grab that 5th spot in the Giants rotation. And if he does, the truth of the matter is he's not likely to give it up. So we'll see. We'll continue to follow that with the Giants. Victor Scott, a guy that we've talked about a lot here on the show, guy we've written about over at FG. Victor Scott has made the team as he should. Victor Scott, is going to be the everyday center fielder. It looks like. It sure looks that way. Michael Ciani, who's that strong defensive player who's not a good hitter, he's just been dreadful this season with the bat in spring. He's just been dreadful. And on the other side of things, Victor Scott's been crushing. Victor Scott, not a high-end prospect per se because his bat is not strong, but he's had good performances in the minor leagues. Last year, he didn't hit at all in the big leagues. He was terrible with the Cardinals. He was also terrible in the minor leagues. So there was a big question coming into this season, where is this guy's career going to go? Is he ever going to be a 5th outfielder, 4th, 5th outfielder that can steal a base? Is he going to be Darian Blanco of Royals fame? Is he going to be that guy? Or is he going to be someone that, maybe this is a Billy Hamilton kind of guy? Hopefully he's a Billy Hamilton kind of guy. The bottom line is he's made the team. He's going to be the opening day center fielder. And if he continues to hit as effectively as he did in spring, anywhere near that level of production, because, of course, he's killed it in spring. He's not going to be hitting 300. But if he's hitting 250 with a 325 on base percentage, he could steal 50 bases. He could be Billy Hamilton. So he's really risen up the rankings over at fantasyguru.com as a result. The Cardinals, they're kind of in a youth movement here. And they're to me, there's no reason not to just give Scott 500 plate appearances and just see. And I think he's been so hot in spring that, he's hitting 366 with 4 home runs. The home runs are really surprising. He's not a power hitter by any means, but his bat has been hot, going to get an opportunity, and his wheels are going to carry him to fantasy goodness. I've seen people say, would I go this guy? Like I remember with Victor Scott, he is a player we're drafting for the wheels. You're not drafting Victor Scott for his bat. He's not going to be a 300 hitter, as I noted. So be very careful if you're making moves, if you're adding Victor Scott, that it's fit, right? Let's say Victor Scott, everything works out for Victor Scott. He hits 8 home runs and he steals 51 bases. Like, he's not going to hit 20 home runs. He's not going to drive in runs. He's very likely to hit 8th or 9th in the order, so he's going to lose some plate appearances. So know who he is, but Victor Scott is very intriguing from a fantasy perspective. There is no really. What did Esteury-Ruiz do a couple years ago? He could easily be Esteury-Ruiz this year. And 2 years ago, Esteury-Ruiz, 5 home runs, 47 runs scored, 47 RBIs, hit 250, stole 67 bases. Keep that in mind with Victor Scott. Kristian Campbell, we've talked a lot. I just finally got an update here on the situation with the Red Sox second base position. We had all the discussion about the Red Sox third base position. We thought second base was going to be Alex Bregman. It's not turned out that way. Bregman's at third. DH is starting the season. Is Devers. The first baseman is Casas. The second baseman is going to be Kristian Campbell. They've already sent down to the minors Von Grissom. They have all along signaled, of course, that David Hamilton's going to be on the bench, but they don't really want to start him. Marcelo Mayer was having a pretty good spring, but he's no longer in the mix. Ari Alexander of CPRC2 News has said that prospect Kristian Campbell has been informed that he's made the opening day roster. It's extremely unlikely that any team keeps a high-end prospect like Campbell on an opening day roster as a bench player. We know this. We see it happen every year. That's for a developmental perspective. That's for a playing arbitration, service time situation too. So Campbell making the team means he's the starting second baseman. Campbell is a very intriguing prospect. He has shot up the rankings at fantasyguru.com with this news. Remember, we didn't know if it was going to be Campbell. We didn't know if it was going to be Mayer. We didn't know if it was going to be Hamilton. Now we have our answer. It's Kristian Campbell, a very intriguing guy who should steal bases early in the season, even if the bat struggles a little bit for the Red Sox. Sean Murphy's got a rib injury. We all know that. The reports were that he would miss, 4 to 6 weeks, something like that, with the injury, with the cracked left rib or cracked right rib, cracked left rib, left rib. Drake Baldwin was somebody that a lot of people were getting a little excited about because Baldwin actually profiles similarly to Sean Murphy, a guy with the ability to hit 15, 20 home runs, a guy who takes a walk, 340, 50 on base percentage maybe. People got excited about Drake Baldwin, drafting him as a second catcher in mixed leagues, all this kind of stuff. Well, Murphy has been cleared to resume baseball activities, so that's good news. He was injured on March 3rd, being cleared for activities 3 weeks later. 4 to 6 weeks still seems really doable here, and maybe it's 5 weeks. So we'll have to continue to monitor the story, but the bottom line is Murphy is going to be back out there and active, barring something really unforeseen, for the Braves in the month of April. Might have been a bargain for you in your drafts if you took him as a second catcher. If you grab Drake Baldwin as a second catcher, this is not great news because you were hoping that that 4 to 6 weeks for Murphy would become 6 to 8. Obviously, the Braves will have to figure this out moving forward. And there's always a chance that Drake Baldwin does enough that, he sees significant time. The Braves, since signing Murphy to that extension, have obviously played Travis d'Arnaud an awful lot. So they have their reasons for not playing on a daily basis Sean Murphy. So Drake Baldwin could still have value. We'll see. But he's trending Murphy toward a return a little bit earlier, I think, than people were hoping / expecting. Mitch Haniger's been released by the Mariners. Still owed $15.5 million this season. It's unclear what Haniger's plans are now. At one point in time, Haniger almost hit 40 home runs and drove in 100 runs back in 2021, a massive season, signed a big contract. There have been moments in time where Haniger's been a must start. There have been moments in time where he's been frustrating. There have been moments in time where he's not been draftable. And right now, he's releasing him by the Mariners is kind of a sign that, because again, they got to pay him anyway. So releasing him is really a sign that maybe it's just done. We'll see with him. Maybe he signs somewhere and works his way into 4th or 5th outfield status. But Mitch Haniger is not somebody that we've talked about this spring for a variety of reasons. The number one reason being I just didn't foresee an opportunity for him to be a full-time player. And even if given that opportunity, just didn't anticipate him being able to step through the door there. He's not stepping through the door. He's been released by the Mariners. Alexis Diaz. Here's one. Here was fun. Here's the fun stuff when it comes to closers. The one league where I drafted a closer early. The one league where I took Alexis Diaz in the 10th round or whatever. And Alexis Diaz is starting the season on the injured list. Yeah. Drafting saves is fun. Right? Really fun. Alexis Diaz is going to open the season on the injured list with a hamstring situation. I'm not saying he's not hurt, but I don't know how much of this is he struggled in spring anyway. So he's going to be sidelined to start the year. It's unclear how much time he's going to miss. We don't know what the Reds' plan is with Diaz being out. There is still an expectation amongst me and actually the beat writers of the Reds, because I had someone in Discord ask about this and did some digging on Blue Sky. The expectation is at this point in time that Alexis Diaz will still lead the Reds in saves in 2025. That's my expectation, and then that's what the beat writers believe. Does not mean that's how it's going to turn out. Again, this is why saves leagues are stupid, but okay. Everyone wants to play in a saves league. Alexis Diaz is going to start the season on the injury list. The names in play are Emilio Pagan, Scott Barlow, and Taylor Rogers. Taylor Rogers has a 30-save season under his belt. Now, he's been a setup guy for years with the Giants, so it's not like the last couple of years he's been blazing up the ninth inning because they had Duvall and then they went to Ryan Walker. But he does have experience in a 30-save season. Barlow has worked the ninth inning some. Pagan has worked the ninth inning some. The disadvantage for Taylor is his lefty. The other two guys are righties. The rankings have been updated at fantasyguru.com, so you can see how I think these guys should be evaluated in 2025. There is no closer being announced. I would anticipate a closer being announced. I would still anticipate Alexis Diaz leading the team in saves. Maybe this is like a 2-week thing and he's back out there. We'll have to continue to follow the news with the Reds. Angelo says Barlow is terrible. Ashcraft is better. Yeah, Barlow is not good. He's just a guy. Ashcraft is very intriguing as a bullpen arm. There was a hope, obviously, that he would start. I think the lack of depth in his repertoire has maybe scuttled that idea. I think Ashcraft would be a dark horse at this point in time. He has the stuff, Angelo, to, in theory, be a very successful, high-leverage, late-inning guy. You're right about that. I just don't know if the Reds are ready to commit to that at this point. Going back to the Orioles, Felix Bautista, I wrote Feliz. It's Felix. Felix Bautista, uncertainty whether he'd make the opening day rotation. We got a report a couple of days ago. Doesn't look like opening day roster, excuse me. Obviously, he's the closer. We got a report suggesting Bautista wasn't going to be available for opening day, and it's like, ugh. Then we had Brandon Hyde come out over the weekend and say he will be on the opening day roster. So this is very positive news. The fact that there's been that wishy-washy, we don't know level, a little bit of concern. I don't think at any point in time that the Orioles were, sweating the first week of the season as they shouldn't be, especially with the guy coming back from surgery on his elbow. But the good news is Bautista is healthy enough to make the opening day roster, coming back from Tommy John surgery. Hasn't been 100% to start the year in camp here. Velocity's been down a little bit, but he's looked good. He's checking the boxes. And the Orioles obviously are confident enough in his health to put him on the opening day roster. So for those of you that spent an early round draft pick, which in most leagues was a top 10 RP pick on Felix Bautista, here we go. It's going to be good to go from day number 1. And the final situation before we look at some of the news today, Matthew Liberatore has been named to the Cardinals rotation. I think this is disappointing to some people. A lot of people were in the Michael McGreevy sweepstakes. Liberatore got that 5th spot in the rotation over McGreevy. That's how they're going to start the season. Obviously, Liberatore has spent a lot of time out of the bullpen for the Cardinals. I don't think the Cardinals have a deep desire to see either one of these guys really in the bullpen if things work out. They're in a rebuild there in St. Louis, right? So, the opportunity for these guys to have success in the rotation is something you have to think about. Eric Fede's there now. The Cardinals can obviously trade him. Sonny Gray admitted his arm wasn't great at the end of last season. He had some injections. He's looked brutally bad to start the season this year in spring. So there's always a chance he loses his spot in the rotation. So McGreevy is by all means not somebody. I don't think McGreevy should have been drafted in most mixed leagues. I don't think he should have been drafted. If you drafted him, this was always a potential outcome. McGreevy is somebody that if he made 18 starts this year, I'd be happy, right? So I don't think this news is surprising, but just sharing it with everybody so we all know what's going on. Looking at some of the news this morning as I'm scrolling through, let's see here. We got a little bit of an update here. Okay, we were talking earlier about the Twins. The Twins optioned Austin Martin to the minor leagues. So that means that Jose Miranda, who we talked about earlier, much likelier to have an everyday role to start the season. Edward Julian, much more likely to have an everyday start of the season role. Probably will be Miranda at the DH spot. Probably Julian at second base against right-handed pitching. Probably Willie Castro at third. So Martin and Lee and Lewis out of the mix for the Twins to start the year. Shane McClanahan talked to reporters this morning. He told the reporters he's feeling better. I'm reading the actual news blurb. He feels better. He feels fortunate that he's only dealing with inflammation in the triceps. Again, the way he looked on the hill. Told reporters that there's no timetable for when he'll return to the mound, unfortunately. This is kind of what we anticipated. As I said earlier, I think a best case scenario is he misses April. Would I drop him? No. This news continues to be what it is, which is this guy's not 100%, but we're not dropping him in mixed leagues right now. Ryan Yarbrough, who basically told the Blue Jays, look, if you're not going to put me on the roster, I want out. They said, sure, we expect you. Good luck, kid. Yarbrough is signing with the Yankees, and while that doesn't excite anybody, that is a divisional opponent, so that stings the Blue Jays a little bit, number one. Number two, obviously, the Yankees are dealing with injuries to Heel and Cole to start the year, so Ryan Yarbrough can end up being a very valuable long man out of the bullpen. He could end up making starts. He could follow an opener. We've seen this game from him a lot. Speaking of Heel, he has been placed on the 60-day injured list. Not a surprise at all. He's going to miss a couple of months with that arm issue he has. So the Yankees doing a good thing, signing Yarbrough, not having to pay him a lot of money with the flexibility that he can relieve and start. Not a fantasy option at this point, only in an only scenario, but just a good move for the Yankees, trying to give themselves some depth on the hill that they're certainly going to need this season, especially early on. So that's kind of a rundown. Remember, go to fantasyguru.com, click the subscribe tab in the top right corner, get signed up for any of the products. If you have any questions, you can send me a note over in Discord at fantasyguru.com. If you're not a member at fantasyguru.com, send a note to support@fantasyguru.com, support@fantasyguru.com. The rankings have been updated. The draft book was updated. The mixed league rankings are updated on a daily basis. The points league rankings were updated last week. There's player profiles coming out on a daily basis. For those of you looking for DFS, we just released the DFS series of intro articles this year, so you can get yourself brought up to date there. As I mentioned earlier in the show, if you missed it, you can always rewind, listen on your app or whatever you're doing here. If you missed it at the start of the show, I will be doing, unless something crazy happens, I'll be doing a podcast here in the next day or two that'll go up, kind of talking about the plan for the betting market. At least from my perspective, we'll have the whole crew involved in the betting over at fantasyguru.com. But I'll do a podcast speaking about how I'm going to handle things with that. Don't forget to continue to look for updates this week on the SiriusXM Gametime show. Again, the plan right now, 8 to 10, Monday through Friday, starting next week. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. And we'll continue to update things over at FG. So hit us up, subscribe tab, top right corner for the baseball packages. The football packages are available. You can do franchise mode right now if you just want the off-season coverage for football. You can sign up for the full season football package. That's year-round. We never stop covering football at fantasyguru.com. You can sign up for the MVP plan. The MVP plan is basically every sport that's not baseball or football. So that means NASCAR, MMA, PGA, horse racing, basketball, hockey, all that is in the MVP plan. So go to fantasyguru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner, get signed up. Finally, what are we doing the rest of the week here at fantasyguru.com? What am I doing? We'll have more player profiles. Oh, I said Austin Wells player profiles up over at Fantasy Guru earlier. It's not. It goes up tomorrow. Oh, I misspoke. I wrote it yesterday. It goes up tomorrow over at fantasyguru.com. We'll have an update as well on Luis Garcia Jr., Jeremy Pena. That betting podcast strategy will go up. We'll have some ramblings. We'll get my first DFS article of the week. It's a big week here at fantasyguru.com and for you in the fantasy space. Remember, I'm here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday on the Fantasy Sports Daily Show at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. Justin Fensterman is on Wednesdays. On Wednesdays, I'm with Jeff Mans. Jeff's show, the Elite Sports Show, is on SiriusXM Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Elite Sports Game Time. Yes, Game Time. Game Time next week, starting Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 Eastern with myself and Justin Fensterman. Thanks for listening today. Let's go. For those of you still drafting, we got you over there at fantasyguru.com. Any questions, hit us up in Discord. We'll be happy to help you out. I'm Ray Flowers, and this has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.